Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Always ready to dive in.
Today we're tackling something pretty important. It's something that, well, it's mental health.
It's a big one.
It is. We hear about it a lot these
Ah.
days. But we're not just going to skim the surface.
Right.
We're going deeper.
Into the stuff people don't always talk about.
Exactly. The unspoken struggles,
Hmm.
the parts that are kind of hidden. And we've got some really interesting sources for this one. They reveal a lot about like the stigma around therapy and
The pressures of dealing with mental health at work.
yeah, and how it's even tougher for certain communities.
Yeah.
But before we get all into that, I got to ask you, the listener. I mean, have you ever felt like you couldn't talk about your own mental health?
It's a question we should all probably ask ourselves,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, it's important to think about because I mean, one of the sources we looked at it said that therapy is often seen as this like last resort,
Mm.
like a sign of weakness, which is so interesting, right? Because we're all about self-improvement these days. But when it comes to mental health, it's almost
It's
like
almost like admitting defeat.
exactly. Instead of seeing it as like a proactive way to take care of yourself.
Yeah, and that all goes back to that stigma, right? That idea that seeking help means you're not strong enough to handle things on your own.
In some cultures, they really
Okay.
they really emphasize that, like stoicism.
Oh, absolutely. Self-reliance is huge in some cultures, so admitting you need help can be really tough.
It's like a double whammy then, right?
Yeah.
If you're already facing other barriers.
Exactly. And it can make it even harder to reach out for support when you need it most.
It's like you're almost punished for trying to take care of yourself.
Right.
And this whole idea of having to appear strong, it doesn't just go away when you go to work.
Oh, no, not at all. The workplace can be like this performance zone where everyone's trying to show they can handle anything.
And you can't show any vulnerability.
Right, because then it's like, oh, maybe you're not up to the task. And one of the sources, it talked about this expectation to just push through stress and burnout.
Ooh, that push through thing.
Yeah.
That really resonates. I feel like I've heard that so many times. But you can't just keep pushing things down forever, right?
You can try, but it's not sustainable. You end up being less productive, your well-being suffers, and it can even lead to more serious problems down the road.
And then there's the fear of what happens if you do speak up.
Yeah.
Like, what if your job is at risk?
That's a real concern for a lot of people, and that's why it's so important for companies to create a culture where employees feel safe to talk about their mental health.
Yeah, where it's not seen as a weakness, but as something that everyone goes through.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
needs to be okay to not be okay.
So we've talked about the general stigma and how it plays out in the workplace. But imagine facing all of that while also dealing with, other challenges, like
Yeah.
like if you're a part of a marginalized community.
Right. And that's where the idea of intersectionality comes in. It's about recognizing that people's experiences are shaped by multiple factors, like their race, gender identity, sexual orientation.
Disability, all of that. It's not just one thing. It's layers and layers of stuff that can impact your mental health.
Exactly. And it can make it that much harder to find resources and support that truly meet your needs.
So, for example, people of color, they're dealing with the impact of systemic racism.
The microaggressions, the constant feeling of having to prove themselves, it's a lot to carry.
And then for the LGBTQ plus community, there's higher rates of mental health issues because of societal rejection.
Absolutely. They often face discrimination, lack of acceptance, and difficulty finding mental health services that are truly understanding and affirming.
And people with disabilities, they have their own struggles with access to care, like finding mental health professionals who are equipped to meet their specific needs.
It highlights the need for culturally competent care across the board, care that recognizes and respects those different lived experiences.
It's not just about providing services. It's about making sure those services are actually accessible and relevant to the people who need them.
Yes, it's about creating a system where everyone feels seen and heard.
But, even with all these challenges, our sources did point to some positive changes happening.
Right. There's definitely a growing awareness around mental health. More conversations are happening.
And some workplaces are starting to implement mental health initiatives.
Which is great. We're seeing more resources becoming available, and
Oh.
people are getting more comfortable talking about their struggles.
That's a huge step forward. But our sources also stress that systemic change is still really crucial. We need a bigger shift in how society views mental health.
Totally agree. We need to create an environment where everyone feels safe to open up without fear of judgment or negative consequences.
And one of the sources asked this really thought-provoking question. It said, how can we help create an environment where everyone feels safe to talk about their mental health?
It's a question we should all be asking ourselves, What can we do in our own lives, in our communities, to make a difference?
So to everyone listening out there, you are not alone in this. And taking care of your mental health, it's just as important as taking care of your physical health.
Couldn't agree more. And please remember, seeking help is not a weakness. It's a sign of strength, whether it's therapy, a support group, or even just talking to someone you trust. Taking that first step can make a world of difference.
And this deep dive today, it's just a starting point. Keep learning about this stuff. Find out about the resources that are available and be an advocate for change in your own communities.
Because creating a world where mental health is truly valued and supported, that's something we all need to work towards.
It's a collective effort. So on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought. Imagine a world where talking about mental health is as normal as talking about, I don't know, the weather.
Wouldn't that be amazing? No more stigma, no more shame, just open and honest conversations about how we're all doing.
It might seem like a far-off dream, but it's a dream worth fighting for. So, until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. And remember, you matter.
You matter.
And we'll see you on the next deep dive.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.